Okay, well, it's just after 6 o'clock, so make a start. Hope you can all hear me okay. My name's Andy Chidgey. I'm one of the transport planning managers at Birmingham City Council. This online briefing session is talking specifically about cycle proposals under what we call the Active Travel Fund, and that's on Bradford Street and the A45 Coventry Road corridor, or in the vicinity of Coventry Road, largely around making permanent some of the temporary measures that went in last year. The format for tonight, I'll give a general overview of sort of the background and policy drivers for why we're doing the schemes. I'll then introduce my colleague Alex Kernan, who will talk through the scheme specific details and show the plans on screen for both Bradford Street and A45. Also introduce two other colleagues on the call. We've got Jamie Stanford and Halima Iqbal. They will be taking or publishing questions that people ask. There's a chat box facility within the presentation that you should be able to see. You can type questions which will come to us, and then we'll answer the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay. So I will just jump to the presentation and then we can make a start. So I hope you can all see that. So first of all, then talk about the policy context. So why are we doing this kind of active travel cycle measures that we're talking about? Well, national policy and local policy now is actually fairly well aligned between the City Council, the Mayor's Office and central government. We've got the Birmingham Transport Plan, which was published only a couple of weeks ago. And one of the key principles of that is prioritising active travel in local neighbourhoods, active travel, walking, cycling, as opposed to sort of private cars. And what the aspiration is that walking, cycling will become the first choice for most people making short journeys in local neighbourhoods. There's also the Birmingham Walking and Cycling Strategy and Local Infrastructure Plan. Again, very similar sort of objectives, and make it safer for people to walk and cycle, make it an easier choice for people to make, and making it sort of providing safer facilities so that kind of encourages more people to cycle. As I say, it makes it an easier option for people to choose. Why do we want to do it? Well, there's too many short journeys are made by car. Something like 25% of car trips in the city are actually less than a mile. So they're trips which people could cycle or walk if the facilities exist. If you're following the news and things like the COP summit in Glasgow, you understand that kind of carry on with the carbon-based economy is something that's not really desirable. Surveys show that a lot of Birmingham residents would like to cycle more, so it is a case of providing facilities and then encouraging people to actually take up the challenge of cycling. Some more of the reasons why we want to do it, and again, if you've been following COP, you'll perhaps know a little bit of this, but something like 900 early deaths a year in Birmingham are attributed to poor quality air. A lot of congestion costs to the economy with roads being so busy. CO2 emissions from the car and even from public transport are quite high. Walking and cycling are extremely low in terms of their emissions. So surveys we've done, 76% of Birmingham residents support the principles of cycle tracks and cycle facilities across the city. 65% would even support that, even if it means there's less room for other road traffic. This is if you can see that plan, this shows the routes we're talking about tonight. So Bradford Street, just off Digbeth, so we're sort of running from the Bull Ring out towards the Ring Road near Camp Hill, and then the A45 corridor, the pop-up route which is already in, follows Bolton Road from Bawdsley Circus and then through towards Small Heath Park. As I said, my colleague Alex will talk through the details in a minute. Just showing how that fits into a sort of wider context. There are already routes along the canal. There's routes along river valleys and things like that, which give more options and connect quite well to the routes we're talking about today. Off-road routes aren't always suitable because, particularly sort of after dark, they're not so attractive. So we do need to try and get routes on the carriageway as well in sort of lit areas. And this is kind of longer term aspirations as well. So some of the dotted lines show things that we would like to do in the future, which you can see sort of enhances the connectivity and sort of connects residential areas with things like employment, education, shops, health facilities and things like that much better. There is, we're hoping that there will be a phase 2 to the A45 corridor, subject to further funding coming in the next few years, which will also provide facilities on the dual carriageway section of Coventry Road, at least out to the Swan, and potentially even further than that in the future as well. But that's for the future. So we're focusing really today on the section of Bradford Street and then the A45 corridor through to the park. Okay, so I'll introduce now Alex Kernan, who's going to talk through the details of the specific proposals.
Hi there, so I'm Alex Kernan. I'm going to share my screen now and talk through the plan. So I'm going to start with Bradford Street first. So hopefully you can see my screen now. So as you can see here, Bradford Street has changed slightly from what's in at the moment on the network. So what we've actually proposed to do is have a with flow cycle route on both sides of the road, so that cyclists can feel comfortable cycling with the flow of traffic. And we thought that would be a good addition. So on the northern side of the plan, where my cursor is currently, we're proposing to have the cycle lane running from Moat Lane, sort of near the Bull Ring and the markets. And that will tie in nicely with another scheme that's been delivered by the Midland Metro Alliance. So this cycle route will be at road level, and it will be separated by a full height curb. There are areas where the cycle route comes up to footway level or pavement level, just where we've got areas such as taxi bays, which you can see here. It just allows people to cross over the cycle route then and safely queue for taxis. And then again, we've implemented the same proposal here for bus stops as well, where we've got a bit of a border there for people to queue and alight the bus. So that creates a nice space, safe space, segregated away from the cyclists there. Now the proposal is to allow cyclists through this route to have priority, as you would using a vehicle. So they will have priority at junctions. The plan is shown in blue at the moment for the whole route, but that is just for illustrative purposes only. So what we're proposing to do is, where cyclists would be crossing over junctions, we'd implement blue surfacing there, just to highlight to vehicle users that there is actually in fact a cycle lane and that they're to give way to the cyclists. So you can see that being observed all the way through the route here. There are some crossing upgrades further along on the route. So what we'd need to do is just upgrade signals so that we could allow cyclists to have priority through the junctions here. We've also tried to retain as much parking as possible on the streets, because I know that's quite important as well. So what we've done is, where we can, we've kept the parking bays as per the existing. So it's noted on the drawing here, approximately 21 parking bays to stay. We have tried to reallocate some of the parking bays on the southern side of the plans this side, where possible. So that kind of keeps some of the parking in situ along Bradford Street, just for anybody using this route. So yeah, I'm just going through the plan back to the start there. So as you can see, there's some areas where cyclists will be asked to rejoin the footway in a segregated capacity, and it will be then dropped back down in certain locations to carriageway level or road level. So that follows all the way down, so you'd go past Warner Street, Moseley Road, past Broome Street, and that takes you on to the last part of the plan, where we've got still continuing with the width flow up to Camp Hill, junction of Camp Hill, where cyclists are asked to rejoin the footway for a little section of shared use on both sides, and cyclists would then need to use the upgraded signals, which should be toucan, and that would bring them back to Trinity Terrace. So that kind of connects onto the A45 route that's currently on site. The A45 route is currently segregated by bollards, orange bollards, which you've possibly seen on site. Those are proposed to be replaced with actual curbs. I think there's a little picture on the side. If I could just zoom in, just sort of showing what that would look like. And that's what we're proposing to use on Bradford Street as well, a curb like that, so it's segregated, so cyclists are away from any traffic, just to add that bit more comfort for cyclists. So when we've got to the signalised junction here by Trinity Terrace, if you were coming from Bradford Street, you would then rejoin the carriageway for a section of on-street cycling. So just be an advisory route because it's quite quiet around here, so we would expect that the traffic is quite low. If you were coming from the A45 scheme, which I'll go through in a second because that's where it ties in, you would be coming contraflow to the traffic along a segregated route again, and then you would rejoin just to sort of cross the oncoming traffic, which is relatively low through here because it's just like a little bit of a slip road, so not heavily trafficked here. So it would just be a bit of a crossing and then back up to the Toucan crossing where you could use the Bradford Street facility. So hopefully that will encourage cyclists to start using this route. And that's that's Bradford Street. So what I'll do is I'll just continue onto the A45. So on the A45, we've got the end of Trinity Terrace here, where the other drawing finishes. So that connects onto the Bawdsley Middleway here. So we've got an existing toucan facility at the end of Bawdsley Middleway here. And what we're actually proposing to do is just extend the shared use footway, where you can see the pink space there. The shared use means that both cyclists and pedestrians can use the existing footways, so they won't change. It's just a case of actually allowing cyclists to use those pavements as well as pedestrians. So then the scheme plan rejoins here at the end of Bawdsley Middleway, junction to Bawdsley Circus Island. So this then connects onto other existing shared use routes along Coventry Road, etc. But our scheme for the A45 connects on here. So we've got an area where we've got a little bit of segregated cycleway there, segregated from pedestrians, just on the corner of Bawdsley Middleway to Small Heath Highway. We've then decided to upgrade the crossing at Small Heath Highway to a toucan. So again, that's for pedestrians and cyclists to cross over and use the existing traffic signal facilities, but obviously it'll be slightly wider to accommodate the cyclists as well, just so there's a bit more room. So cyclists can cross over the Small Heath Highway and then join onto Bawdsley Park Road, where they will be in their own segregated facility, which away from the pedestrians, which will be in both directions. If I just carry on with the plans, so you can see we've just tied into Bawdsley Park Road here. So we're proposing that the two-way cycleway continues as per the existing pop-up route through this section. We're going to formalise the section just under the railway bridge as well. So rather than just having matting through there, we're going to do some paving through here, tarmac through here, just so we can actually have a more, well, increase the longevity of that section there. We then come under the bridge up to Bolton Road, again just following the existing bi-directional or two-way cycle route. So on site at the moment on Bolton Road, again we've got the orange bollards. So we are actually proposing that we change those to curbs. So again, they would be similar curbs to the photo I showed earlier. So that will be along here. Now, Bolton Road is one way currently with the pop-up route. We're actually proposing now that we will reinstate the two-way, which will make it easier for residents. So we've listened to the feedback that we've received and we've taken that on board. So hopefully that will ease any issues on Bolton Road currently. So with the Bolton Road cycleway, we've shown the segregated curb. Obviously, we will allow for some gaps in these curbs just to allow cyclists to alight and gain access if they need to, if they live in the local area and they've cycled into Birmingham. It just gives a little bit more access to join the route. As I say, at junctions we will have the blue surfacing through the junction, because cyclists again will have priority where junctions are situated, and it just shows vehicle users that they need to be aware of cyclists. So I'll continue on. So showing the rest of the length of Bolton Road here. So again, 4 segregated curbs. Didn't mention that this will be at road level as well. So it won't be at the footway level, and the footway will still be usable as it is now. So you'll just have a cycleway next to it rather than having the traffic. But again, as I say, it will be two-way along Bolton Road as well. So we've managed to fit that in. So this is where we have made some additional changes from the existing layout of the Small Heath Bridge junction to Jenkins Street and then Bolton Road towards Van Close. So I'll just go through that now. So what we're proposing to do here is to change the priorities at this junction, as we feel it may flow better if we change the priorities. So what that means is that on Bolton Road, the vehicles would be expected to give way to the oncoming traffic from Jenkins Street or from the Small Heath Bridge. So effectively, Jenkins Street and Small Heath Bridge would have priority straight across. That's not how it's operating now. So at the moment, Bolton Road have priority, but we feel that it would be more effective to have Jenkins Street and Small Heath Bridge with priority, just to allow the junction to flow a little bit better and have a little bit more visibility, because some of the comments we received were that sometimes vehicles are protruding out onto Bolton Road just because of the wall that's here, just beyond here. So we feel that it would be better, rather than the cars edging and potentially being in the way of any oncoming traffic, it would be better to actually give them priority, because Bolton Road have a little bit more visibility at the junction here. So that's what we've suggested. Again, this side will still away, so you can sort of turn left out of Small Heath Bridge onto Bolton Road, and you'll be able to come out of Bolton Road as previous, before the pop-up route was here. So we've got the proposal of a crossing for pedestrians and cyclists here. So at the moment, we've proposed that cyclists have priority again across the junction, just because it gives a bit of continuation, and it makes the route a bit quicker for cycling. And we've proposed that the pedestrian crossing here, because I think it is quite well used as well, so it's just creating a little bit of a better crossing facility here. So this is where we've proposed to keep the one-way section, which is just between Bolton Road and Van Close, and the junction of Jenkins Street, so just from Jenkins Street to Van Close, just to reduce the movement at this junction here for vehicles. So you'll still be able to come down Jenkins Street and turn left and right, but you won't be able to come from Van Close along this section through to Bolton Road. So it's only a localised sort of alteration here. So you would, if you were travelling down Van Close to get to Bolton Road, for example, it's just a small diversion there up to Van Close and then on to Jenkins Street, and then obviously the two-way can be used. But again, it's just to reduce those movements there, to just keep everybody safe, and just give that safer feeling at that junction. So I'll just move on to the next drawing. So as discussed, we've got that no entry here. We've proposed to do a little build out here on Bolton Road, just as you get to Van Close, and then you would just sweep up here as a vehicle user, and then use the Jenkins Street route if you needed to get to Bolton Road on the opposite side. So if we look at the cycleway again now, so the cycleway again is two-way along this stretch of Bolton Road on the opposite side. We will again leave gaps at junctions, just so that cyclists can easily manoeuvre in and out of the cycle route. That just gives a better connectivity into the residential areas for those who would like to cycle into the city. And that will again be at road height. Traffic calming measures will remain, which is a note that we've put on the drawing. So that's just as per the existing. We haven't changed anything there as part of the pop-up or part of this scheme. So they're just in situ. We get to Oakley Road, and again, we've just provided some line markings, and also we'll be providing some surfacing here to show that cyclists will in fact have priority along this route. And then we get to the end of Bolton Road now. So again, just following the same alignment as the pop-up scheme here. And what we'll do is we're planning to widen the grassed area here to facilitate a cycle track. This cycle track will be raised from this point here up to the level of the footway. So it'll be at that same level. And it's proposed to be segregated again from the pedestrians who would be using this sort of pink section here. So that takes you up to Golden Hillock Road, pretty much. So where we've introduced that sort of, you can see those orange lines, that's tactile there to denote that this section is for shared use again. So that's for cycling and for pedestrians through this route here. And that goes up to an existing toucan crossing facility, which is again for cycling and for pedestrians. Scoot over to the next plan. So then cyclists would be crossing over here with the pedestrians. And what we've proposed here is that we introduce another section of segregated cycle route at the level of the footway or pavement level. It is two-way, and that's just outside the mosque. So to accommodate the width of the cycle route here, we have proposed to take out the left turn lane on Golden Hillock Road. So it just gives a bit more capacity in the footway, so we're not losing out on footway space, which is needed in this section, but we're allowed sort of introducing a nice section here of two-way cycling, just to provide that extra connectivity and just to make it a little bit quicker on the route because it's segregated from the pedestrians. So then the cycle route comes down onto Byron Road. So on Byron Road, we had some feedback again about the cycle route, the pop-up cycle route that we have currently in place. We have listened to that feedback because I know that obviously with the school being there, etc., it can be quite difficult with parking and things like that. So we've found that because this road is quite quiet, it's mainly residential, and I suppose it would only be at peak times really when there would be the majority of traffic. So what we've said is that we'll take out the cycle route that's currently there and reinstate the little parking bay that's existing. So we wouldn't change anything in the parking bay, we would just remove the bollards and it would go back to the existing. The cycle symbols will still stay on the road just because it sort of highlights to vehicle users that this is actually a preferred route used by cyclists, and it just gives a little bit more awareness of anybody opening car doors, etc. as well. So that's that section on Byron Road. So again, just showing that we are reverting back to the pre-installation of the pop-up route, so that will remain the same. We have included a section of double yellow lines along Byron Road because there is a little bit of an issue of visibility around this corner here because it's two-way, and there is, you know, it does get quite built up with traffic, etc. here, so it would be better if we didn't have parked vehicles here, just from a visibility point of view, safety point of view, etc. So that's what we've introduced there. So at the end of Byron Road, at the junction to Waverley Road, we're proposing to change the traffic island that was there previously to a junction instead. It just gives a bit more of a ease of movement at this section. We think that this would operate better if it was a junction arrangement rather than an island. What we've proposed also is that we build out the footway on Waverley Road to accommodate a section of shared use for cyclists. So cyclists would be able to utilise the advisory route, readjoin the footway or pavement, and then use a crossing facility that we'd like to introduce across Waverley Road to provide a nice connection into the Tennyson Road Park or small. So we've also suggested to introduce a crossing for pedestrians at this section as well, just because there doesn't want to exist in the existing arrangement, and we feel that, again, for pedestrians that would be a benefit to allow pedestrians to cross over safely to the park. So near the end of the plans now, so I'll just skip on to the next one, which shows Tennyson Road. So Tennyson Road, again, we've listened to the feedback that we received for the suggested pop-up route here. We are proposing to leave Tennyson Road as it is, with just the section of shared use, which is again for cycling and pedestrians on the footway as per the existing. So we will not be widening the footway there. We won't be taking out any parking or reducing any capacity there. That will remain the same, but it just still allows cyclists to have more freedom to utilise that park there. They're able to access a little bit easier if they can use the footway in a shared capacity. And the scheme will then end at the junction of Coventry Road, where we're proposing to just install a bit of a crossing point here with a raised table, just to allow pedestrians and cyclists to cross a little bit easier and connect onto the Coventry Road a bit better. So that's the cycleway routes for Bradford Street and the A45. I'm going to unshare my screen now and hand you back over to Andy Chidgey. Oh, Andy, you're on mute, sorry.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I'd shared my screen and then realised I couldn't get back to unmute myself. So, okay, so I'll leave that slide up, which just shows how people can have their say while we take a few questions. So if people do want to comment outside of this presentation, then the Birmingham Bee Herd website has information if you look for Bradford Street or A45 cycle routes, and you can email our inbox at connected@birmingham.gov.uk, and there is a drop-in event at the old library on Digbeth on Tuesday the 23rd of November. Okay, and there will be separate sessions on two other routes that we're proposing. One is from the city centre towards the City Hospital on Dudley Road, and the other is a connection from Cannon Hill Park and the cricket ground across to Moseley. Okay, so I don't know if Jamie or Halima just want to read out questions that have come in.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. Thank you both for that as well. So the first one was from HH, and It is, have zebra crossings been considered across the side roads off Bradford Street?
We haven't considered zebra crossings. Most of the crossings will stay as they are for pedestrians. We have allowed, oh, I'll reshare my screen, shall I? Nope. So hopefully you can see my screen here. So in terms of crossing points, they would stay as they are for the most part for pedestrians. So there will be some reshuffling of crossing points just to accommodate the cycle route as well. But yes, they would be as per the existing. We could consider them in certain locations if you wanted to make any suggestions, if necessary. I don't know if Andy wants to jump in.
Yeah, if you're talking specifically about pedestrians, we're not proposing significant changes, but the roads, particularly to the south of Bradford Street, should actually get quieter because of other things that are happening through the segments initiative, which is sort of trying to restrict traffic more on city centre streets. So although there won't be more facilities for pedestrians, the roads themselves should be quieter. If you're thinking of crossings for cyclists, then I think where the signal crossings at the moment, so that's on some of the busier junctions like Ray Street, I think we are looking at incorporating facilities for cyclists within the signals. Alex might be able to confirm that.
Yes, we will be.
Yeah, because of the speed that the pop-up routes were implemented, we couldn't sort of do significant signal changes. So at the moment, cyclists either have to sort of wait and look for gaps in the traffic or dismount and cross as a pedestrian. But yeah, the scheme should overcome that for cyclists.
Okay, and I've got another question as well from Ryan. Will there be any additional lighting added to Bolton? Also, will Bolton Road be resurfaced?
Okay, so in terms of the lighting, we haven't looked at doing the lighting review at the moment, but it is something that that can be done. There are sort of design standards for lighting on that type of road. I suppose at the moment it's only classed as a fairly residential road, so if we are trying to encourage cyclists to use it, we can have a look at whether that needs a higher standard of lighting. Generally, resurfacing is done through our maintenance contractor Kia, and we do try and avoid spending a lot of the cycling money on resurfacing because it does really drain the budgets for what we've got for other measures. But I think we do need to look at the condition of particularly I think Bolton Road and those roads along there in the channel. So hopefully the bits where we're actually segregating for cyclists, we can at least have a look at probably not necessarily full resurfacing, but certainly kind of patching up the worst of it and trying to improve the surface there for cyclists. As Alex said, in some areas we will look at blue surfacing, but that will kind of tend to focus on key conflict points like junctions and things like that rather than being done throughout.
Okay, thanks for that. And also a question from Tim. So will the slides be available? Is there a recording of the session as they were only just able to join the session? Yeah,
the session is recorded. I'm not quite sure how it's shared. I probably need to come back to if anybody else knows how we share it, but they are definitely recorded and they are available. So I don't know if Tim, if you've got an email address or something, if you just drop it in the chat, we won't publish it so others can't see it, but we can come back to you on that.
Yeah, so got another question from Ryan. Will there be a cycleway cleaning schedule put in place I don't believe they are currently cleaned and cleared. A44 between town and one stop isn't great in places.
Yeah, we do have cleaning schedules with the existing blue routes, but unfortunately they're not probably as regular as we'd like them to be. And I know I think there's complaints particularly about things like litter on the A34 and on the A38 one down to the university. There's quite a few leaves and things like that which cause problems. But yeah, it is something that we are talking to our maintenance teams about. Sort of both kind of regular cleaning and also things like winter gritting as well. I think there's been some discussions on the actual width of the tracks and sort of what equipment can get in there, because the brush truck cleaners are quite wide, so they need a certain width. In places where the cycle routes have to be a bit narrower, it's more like hand cleaning or the small sit-on equipment that they have in the city centre.
Okay, thank you for that. And another question from Chris. If travelling from Trinity Terrace to Bradford Street, the route across the crossings appears convoluted, is there a possibility to simplify this?
Yes, we could look at alternatives there. We did think that would possibly be the easiest to sort of the route across Trinity Terrace, given the existing layout there. But it's something that we could take back to our designers and look at to see if there's anything further that we could do there.
And another question from Tim. How much attention has been paid to junctions?
Yes, as I sort of said before, that the original pop-up schemes went in quite quickly, so there wasn't kind of the time or the funds to do more innovative solutions. But that is, yeah, something like cycle stages through the traffic signals and things like that. And we've got people in the team who've sort of got experience from places like London of some of the things that have been done. I mean, particularly things like closing off side roads to traffic and having the kind of continuous footway across the side road, which gives cyclists and pedestrians much more priority over traffic emerging from the side roads. That's the sort of thing we're looking at in appropriate locations. It's not appropriate everywhere if you've got things like a lot of heavy traffic or buses and things like that, but certainly for quieter roads, there's things like that can be done, and that will kind of come out in the detailed design as well. As I said before, there is potentially more funding for the A45 as well. Unfortunately, that's probably not available for a year or two, but that will allow us to do more as well, both kind of within the area that we've already talked about, but also then extend the scheme onto the dual carriageway part of Coventry Road up to the Swan, which is a busier section of road. So that does need kind of more of the more of those kind of innovative and more segregated type solutions. And Tim as well, I think it was Tim who asked about sharing of the slides. We can put them onto the Be Heard page. So if you take a note of the Be Heard website address, we can post the slides onto those pages for people to pick up and read.
Tim did have another question as well. Have you looked at the Cyclops work in Greater Manchester?
We have, yeah. I don't know the full details of the Cyclops work, but certainly Mark, our program manager, has quite a good knowledge of those. So it is something that we can look at where it's appropriate. It might be something that has to go into the longer term elements of the scheme, sort of depending on cost and complexity. But yeah, I know there's quite good work being done in Manchester, and we do have contacts at Transport for Greater Manchester, sort of people who are overseeing some of those schemes at the moment.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks both for that. I think that's the end of the questions now. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, right. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for the questions, and thanks for joining this evening. As I say, if you want further information, then you can look on Be Heard, or you can email us at connected@birmingham.gov.uk, or come to the drop-in session on the 23rd. Okay, right. Thanks very much, everybody, and have a good evening.